Devi Grace. Devi, my goodness, I don't even know where to start with Devi. She is a receiver and a transmitter for the energy of Gaia, for the crystalline grids, etc. She experiences her vibrations in all types of different forms, and she works as an Akashic intuitive, an archetypal oracle, a master ancestral healing author, an Akashic intuitive, archetypal oracle, master facilitator, soul embodiment facilitator, and her list goes on and on. So guys, I want to present to you Miss Devi Grace, and she can tell a little bit more about herself.
I just want to say about Devi is that I really enjoyed the way in our interview she talked about Shakti and energy and embodying a force for change. So thank you, Devi, for being here. And go ahead, add whatever you want and take it away.
So a part of the sacred feminine nuance that I'll speak to first is that the name Devi, as it's pronounced over in India, translates as the primordial goddess. So that was my 5th walk-in when I received the name Devi. And it's an archetypal vibration that signals, as I use it, right, as my name here in connection, that this original divine mother frequency is here to assist the whole species. And in some sense, her walking into my body is the same process that Gaia is going through with her soul. So what I was asked to present today to our community that's in partnership with all the other presenters is like an archetypal framework for the principles of a walk-in, not just for us as individuals, not just for two-leggeds, that the same principles for a walk-in can also apply to a planetary body. And this is what John Lamb Lash is meaning when he said planetary Tantra is our saving grace. And a lot of people don't connect the science of a walk-in to the consciousness of planetary ascension. And through all of my near-death experiences, the reason why I had all these cumulative, spiritually transformative experiences is to help me unpack this mystery so that I can be an effective messenger for the rest of our leadership team around the planet to see these correlations, that this is really a divine marriage of science and consciousness. So my approach to walk-ins is like morphogenetic field physics. I'm very much in that logical quantum mechanics of these vertical alignments. And I really appreciate what one of the presenters said yesterday in terms of the distinction that allows us to have the awareness that a walk-in isn't necessarily a soul exchange. A walk-in, as Cryon has said, and Marilyn Harper also echoed this, is also our future self. It's just the human amnesia makes it look like it's right, like another being from another galaxy or another dimensional reality. The human race has been so dumbed down, the amnesia has been so thick that a lot of walk-ins don't realize that that's just their future self. So if they have a 15th dimensional Andromedan aspect that walked into their 3rd dimensional human framework, that feels to them like a soul exchange. And I know this because I was a part of We International, which is, walk-ins for evolution. It was set up by Ruth Montgomery way back in the day, even when Doreen Virtue was presenting at those walk-in conferences that were being hosted like in places like Sedona. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm the new kid on the block, right? I was the next generation, probably about 30 years younger than all the other attendees. And I saw this connection that quote unquote that generation wasn't picking up on. And I was like, this is like a walk-in from your oversoul. This isn't like an outside ET entity taking you over. This is your own divinity. And so for me, when I talk about my near-death experience walk-ins, it's multidimensional soul embodiment, so that there's no misunderstanding, right? That there's some outside interstellar frequency that is overriding my sovereign free will. So I had 3 near-death experiences in my childhood, and then I had 2 more close brushes with death, quote unquote, in my later years. And each time I went through one of these shamanic rites of passage, I was humbled to my core in terms of really getting present to human limitation, meaning the vulnerabilities of our human body. Human bodies can die. They can suffer, you know, lethal wounds, and the vessel doesn't survive. And so we all know that there's the continuation of consciousness. We never die, right? We just transition out of the physical form. And so in some sense, it's like I went through all of these deaths and resurrections to prove the immortality of the soul. And that is like resurrection, walk-in, prototype, blueprint, so that the human race doesn't just believe that, quote unquote, that was only something available for Yeshua ben Joseph, right? Or the one known as Jesus Christ, who also, of course, was a walk-in. When Christ was initiated in the River Jordan, quote unquote, by the frequency of the Holy Spirit, that was the cosmic Christos walking down into Yeshua ben Joseph's body. And so a lot of the avatars have been walk-ins. And he had that benediction, right? The blessing of the Holy Spirit. And as we know from the Gnostic scholars, that's the Divine Mother. You know, she be the Sophianic Holy Spirit. So he received more of his quantum multidimensional self when he had his walk-in from Jesus to the Christos. And I say that with a capital K. Same thing for Buddha, right? Siddhartha is sitting there at the base of the Bodhi tree, and he's hanging out with all of these huge Dakini presences, right? And the Bodhi tree of life. And so Siddhartha woke up to this Maitreya walk-in, which they have in the Buddhic mysteries. And so Yeshua and Siddhartha, right? These 2 lineages, the Christ family and the Buddha family, are exemplifying that the way that we go through this shamanic metamorphosis is the human caterpillar receives more of its multidimensional butterfly. And I just consider a walk-in to be that chrysalis, you know, going through the metamorphosis and the human consciousness. Each time that I, quote unquote, lost my human life, I was utterly humbled of like, okay, got it. That's what it feels like to cease to exist in my human form. Now, what can I do in this moment where I'm in limbo, right? I'm neither fully graduated back to origins, and I'm not incarnate on the planet anymore. And so I had what you would call these end-of-life reviews. And I went into council meetings like in 1977 and 1983, and also in 2014, also in 2019. And I was able to objectively assess the situation and observe the challenges that were taking place on the planet in terms of, you know, the breakdown of the operating principles of truth and balance and integrity. So my deaths were very challenging. They weren't, you know, some car accident or anaphylactic shock. They were a result of the archonic interference with the development of the human race, who's destined to become Homo spiritus, sapien divinus, Homo luminous, whatever you want to call that, metamorphosis, transfiguration, and transmutation. And so I was able to document or testify or submit the reports in these council hearings as to the status of how things were playing themselves out in the human family systems or the ancestral tree of life. So we had this huge family tree of life council meeting every single time I died. And I said, look, this is what the human family tree of life is dealing with. And they're innocent because you can't say that this is their human free will to separate from themselves, right? Or manifest choice points of fear. I said, the human race is innocent. If they were given the supportive opportunity, they choose love. And so at that point, the planet was technically in a state of quarantine, right? Back in the 70s and the 80s. And part of my job was to communicate that there had been illegal tampering in the human genome that was making it very difficult for the species to make actions, choices, and behaviors that came from their heart, particularly within the nucleus of the family unit. And so I was able to basically wear the hat of a galactic lawyer, and I went in to the real Justice League that we have in interstellar tribunal courts in the higher octaves. And I basically proved the innocence of the human race, and I proved the innocence of Gaia. And I said, this is tampering from what you would call archonic negative high frequency. The species has no protective measure to neutralize this external threat that is manipulating 5D, 6D, 7D, 8D, 9D, 10D, and 11D tech and 12D technology in a very manipulative, sneaky, obviously unethical manner. The species wasn't evolved enough to protect themselves from what you would call unpleasant maneuvers. And that's, of course, being compassionate in my languaging. And so there's an archetype that we speak about in terms of the Black Madonna aspect of the Divine Mother. And she's Pele, or she's Kalima, or she's Sekhmet, Guadalupe, the Black Virgin. And so basically the Black Madonna channeled through me in my council meetings and basically presented this fierce love and this fierce grace and this fierce advocacy for the neutralization of harm that was being inflicted upon generation after generation after generation, without appropriate assistance being provided to the species to be able to recover from that kind of illegal leveraging of the playing field, is the nicest way to put it. And each time I was, quote unquote, received into these mystery schools, I started my mystery school training probably about in my late 20s, not just with what you would call the Ascended Master octaves, with, you know, all these different gradations of the higher councils of light, because the councils of light are the ones that mentor and advise the human avatars. And so I said, what am I actually dealing with? Where's the breakdown in this whole promise that the I am that I am is able to take form and manifest, and that the soul can fully have its emancipation and destined opportunity to birth and midwife its highest expression in its human timeline by choice. I basically was brokering, can we please restore free will? Because they deserve it, meaning the human race. And in those near-death experiences, when I'm in the in-between, I'm walking in two worlds. I remember what it was like feeling the injustice of death and destruction and annihilation and galactic warfare. And on the other side of the equation, I know I'm an intergalactic ambassador for the restoration of the original universal, natural, divine laws. So if a human being's choosing love, however, they're constantly being bombarded with very sophisticated negative high frequency manipulations that are coming from fear or separation or duality, what chance does a human being have to stand up to that kind of domination? And so I found this wonderful woman by the name of Dr. Rian Eisler, who wrote this book called The Chalice and the Blade. And she said, well, this is domination culture, and the destiny of the species is partnership culture. And then this light bulb went off, and I was like, oh, that's what we were talking about in our intergalactic tribunal council meetings. There needed to be walk-in special agents, right? Galactic CIA, to come back down into this dimension, come back down into the human family systems, and be like a female 007 special agent on assignment to dismantle the funky business, right, of these intergalactic villains that were, working behind the scenes, and nobody was holding them accountable. So I started to gravitate towards all of these ancient myths and legends, and I was like, oh, the formula for the redemption of matter is in the mythic. All of these archetypal heroes and sheroes journeys, they're all examples for us to realize that we can become those characters and self-actualize through our body the technology of miracles on a very practical and magical way. And yet, without conferences like this, we can't demonstrate for the rest of our human tribe that these kinds of opportunities are genuinely available to us. So, of course, I'm riffing right now. This isn't the presentation that I planned. However, I'm speaking to the truth of the living moment, and this is what's coming through. So I'll just take a little pause and assess with my teams, like, okay, now what? Because it's not going to be in English. So I'll basically say everything that I just said in what you would call the right brain language of light. Even if your mind doesn't understand the terms, your heart or your soul will be able to relate or translate what's being spoken. So just breathe deep into your heart. Put your ears down to your heart. So you're not going to be listening to what I'm saying with your human mind. And we're going to have those heart ears from your soul. Tune into the broadcast. Dotain kiskesh, noma kikietetia, molokoshkoto varakatata, nesisi zodevalopor, nawatatia kante, nawator kotosh, dibeakis ovalali, nana iskiske kontontona. The left brain translation of that is that which we call a walk-in can also be considered a soul merge. To partis contampanas, so partaletianana. It's the embodiment of an aspect of an oversoul frequency, a higher vibratory bandwidth of our own consciousness. Waking down through the vessel of the human temple, to have the experience of a cellular awakening. It's known as the Tantra, the vertical Tantra of the spirit, fully occupying the matter. Or a multi-dimensional marriage. How else are we going to get the I am presence to come down into the flesh? So every ascended master basically had a walk-in. Including Kuan Yin, including Mother Mary. When we go through this huge transformational process, where we die to our small self or our limited human identity and shamanically surrender that to the mystery of this infinite, eternal presence, and give these gradations of consciousness permission to unify. That's a waking down. So over soul merge, waking down, walk in, vertical alignment, multidimensional tantra, it's all saying the same thing. The vernacular is different. The connotations have different nuances. The universal principle that this miracle is available to each and every one of us is point blank honest. Every presenter here at this conference is accessing this miracle through their own life experience and demonstrating that we're all going about this caterpillar into the butterfly, shape-shifting process, except it's all transpiring in this massive smorgasbord of infinite versions. So once I started having decades of conversations, right, with all the ascended masters and learning their stories of how they woke up and hearing from them that we've all had walk-ins, that's what made us an ascended master, I was like, oh, no joke. Okay, got it. And so the whole point is that this transformational pathway can be made available to the entire human collective. It's not just for, you know, a remote few of us. To quicken what you would call the evolutionary pulse. And of course, through the power of imagination, we have to know that these kinds of miracles are even available. Everything begins in our imaginative dreaming capacity. And if we trust that walk-ins are safe, that it's not an outside ET frequency that's attempting to override our blessed body temple without our permission, and that we can clarify that we're actually choosing our infinite divine being to partner with us in this human starship called a body, then this becomes the quickening for an accelerated, embodied, comprehensive metamorphosis for like thousands and thousands and thousands of human family systems, because it just takes one individual in a genetic pool to trigger that beautiful chain reaction that love wins and the law of grace trumps what you would call the law of karma, and that love and grace get to take center stage because we deserve it. The human race deserves to receive miraculous divine intervention by our what you would call older brothers and sisters of the galactic families of light. The star ancestors are the ancient guardians of the human ancestors. We all came from celestial origins. So some people are going to basically say, well, my star grandmother and my star grandfather came in and helped me out. And, you know, that indigenous perspective is just as valid, because our star ancestry loves us so much that they would just like to make this whole process easier. So I actually specialize in, you know, massive multi-generational ancestral healing through these walk-in councils of the star ancestors, which would be in the mythology equivalent to the real Jedi order. And Jedi not as, you know, George Lucas spelled it, Jedi as the Egyptians, D-J-E-D-H-I. The Jedi order is real. So I'm a council member in the real Jedi order, which was set up, of course, in the Egyptian dynasties. And your awakening to your Jedi power is that Kundalini awakening. Of course, the Jed is the Sushumna, the central channel. And each time that I humanly died, I basically went through another version of a massive Kundalini awakening in partnership with the intelligence of nature. I didn't have this Kundalini awakening that was disconnected from the morphogenetic unified field of the planet. And so that's where Planetary Tantra partnered with Kundalini awakening, because my galactic self knew that I must partner with the intimate soul of the biosphere in order to be an alchemizing catalyst for planetary Kundalini awakening. So I know we have examples and cultures all over the planet where human beings go through this huge transformational process when they have an individual Kundalini awakening. Well, the galactic federations, right, of these interstellar councils are like, we got to get a planetary Kundalini awakening going on down there. The ancient name for Terra Nova, right, is Gaia, and her other name is Aramatena, that's in 12D and above. And so one of my other associates in Boulder used to call her just the Great Babe, you know, Pachamama, Pachatata. The Wiccans called her the Green Woman. And of course, she has a husband. So it was never just a female deity. It was Gaia and the Green Man. And so, you know, truth be told, the Green Man is Osiris. And truth be told, Gaia is Isis. And this archetypal resurrection, right, of Isis resurrecting the Green Man is no different than the Gnostic mythology of the galactic Christos resurrecting Gaia Sophia. And these beloveds, right, are these planetary twin flames. So again, people don't understand what that term means. The twin flame is never outside of us. The twin flame is our exact divine blueprint complementary energy signature that reconnects us with prime source energy. You can't have an external twin flame because then you're disembodying your power. It's an internal vibratory frequency that reconnects you with your source origins, your source connection, your source code blueprint, for lack of a, you know, better term. So my walk-ins have been a direct tantric experience with my twin flame source code. And so I had to ground this with the root system of the planet. Otherwise, my body couldn't handle that voltage. It would be like being struck by a bolt of lightning. And so in order to survive that magnitude of life force that was rebooting me and also rebooting the planet, I had to surrender to this assistance from all of the powers of nature, which is fundamental to every form of shamanic intelligence on the planet. Some of the older lineages is Celtic shamanism or African shamanism. So of course you will see in the African cultural records, they worked with all of their star ancestors. And you will see in your Celtic shamanic records, the Druids and the Grail families, right? The Holy Grail, Holy Family lineages in Ireland and Scotland, we were just known as the Shining Ones. And we had multi-dimensional citizenry. We had access to our elven aspects. We had aspects from the great realms of the Telluric and the Fae, which of course, Barbara Handclough is a beautiful messenger. And we had access to our interstellar relations. And so in these golden ages in Africa and also in Ireland and Scotland, the worlds were partnering. And this whole phenomenon of a walk-in was kind of a normal rite of passage. So imagine a species who just relates to this level of a soul merge as a natural and normal initiation into being. And that you had this incredible assistance from your star grandmothers and your star grandfathers to come in and go like, okay, now's your turn. And that it can get easier for everybody to receive these gifts because it's not just for a few of us. And if we trust that the walk-in experience can be made available universally, just as multidimensional soul merge or a multidimensional, I call it circuitry alignment, then it makes it a household name just for like another graduation ceremony. Like you graduate from college. Well, I'm graduating into my oversoul merge. And you incorporate that into like the indigenous rites of passage, a maturation of coming of age of like, well, now I'm going to go through my metamorphosis and emerge from this more terrestrial expression of myself and accept and receive this multidimensional fractal of my soul and invite it to marry and mate and physically make love to my human body. So for me, I use all of the metaphors of sacred sexuality. It's like my soul made love to me and I experienced a direct, orgasmic, erotic, tantric initiation with my twin flame in the spirit world, because that dimension of me was the only part of me that knew how to resurrect my dead body, if that makes sense. And when my other elders on the planet saw this, and they saw, oh, that's how Isis could resurrect Osiris. That's how Dumuzi could resurrect Inanna. That's the Sumerian culture. That's how Magdalene could resurrect Yeshua. Oh my gosh, this is the universal archetypal formula. That's how Trinity could resurrect Neo, and that's how Neo could resurrect Trinity, right? In the Matrix Resurrections. What do we have on 12/22/21, right? The twin Matrix Resurrections. So it's in the mythology of our entertainment industry. It's in the mythology of Sumeria. It's in the mythology of Egypt. It's in the mythology of Israel. We have the twin flames in every culture and every continent. And all they do is they resurrect each other over and over and over again to prove that there is no death and only love and life is real. What happens though in a walk-in is that there's the death of the veils, or the death of the illusion of separation, or the death of the small personality, or the death of the multi-generational ancestral trauma. You know, death isn't a bad thing if it's seen as a part of the miracle of metamorphosis. And so the archons and the Anunnakian empires and the reptilians and the greys, they've all infected the species with a virus of fear to resist the great unknown. And that has stagnated the species because there's been a trauma program instilled in the body of the human race that says, no, 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 don't go to the void. Don't go to 0 point. You're going to die. And so the Magdalene lineages, the Isis lineages, the Sophia lineages, the Kali Ma lineages, this is like, yeah, go to the void, go to 0 point. You're just going to die to your limitation. Your infinite eternal consciousness cannot be destroyed in any manner, shape, or form. And so this is how the walk-ins can be assisting the planet with COVID, right? If the species isn't in panic and fear that they're going to lose their life from, you know, some disastrous bioweapon, the walk-ins can be the ambassadors of like, are you willing to go through a miraculous metamorphosis to overcome any and all tampering that has been forced upon you by these ancient naughty ETs that are attempting to fool you into thinking that you're that small, tiny human personality that can't repair itself. So, you know, this is another presentation for another day. Preview of coming attractions. The walk-ins are needed worldwide right now as ambassadors to neutralize the false narrative. And I'll just leave it at that. So there's my like debriefing of a bit of my story, what I went through, and also giving our collective team here a bit of a educational debriefing, wisdom. And yet none of this will have any traction if we don't all share these principles with each other. So I channeled this gorgeous PowerPoint for us because I speak also to the images, the right brain, and a picture says 1,000 words. So these pictures will convey what I've actually been saying through the icon of the visual transmission, so we can move into another part of our psyche. That's okay. So I'm going to learn this little thing called share screen and then move into this other access point. Do you guys do that? Oh, no, I got it. Okay. So you heard me say this term about planetary Kundalini awakening. So now be present with this gorgeous image with this couple that's at the base of the tree of life, which is also known as the original tree of life, which is the tree of love and the tree of grace. No, they didn't write about it in the Bible. Yes, it's the original tree of life. This seated miracle is the holy union of every sacred feminine and sacred masculine principle that dwells within the one quantum original living tree of life, tree of love, tree of grace. That seed point underneath them, that is the sleeping giant within the body of the planet. Now in the human body, right, that Kundalini is spiraled at the base of our spinal column, right? And so it's like imagining that the planet also has a spinal column in this seed point inside of her anatomy and physiology. And that part of the reason why the walk-ins is here on a collective scale is to ignite a planetary Kundalini awakening. And we did talk about this concept at some of the WE International conferences back in like 2003, 2004. And that's when Renoli was, still a part of that organization, and, other gifted luminaries that have been pioneers in this movement. And so basically the walk-in is an archetype, and this archetype is here for planetary service. This is a painting from a gentleman that's in Mexico. It's Beltane, it's the beloveds in the embrace, abrazos. And I called it nature's holy union. And that through this principle of that twin flame Tantra that I was talking about, we can have a planetary walk-in. And in Gnostic mysticism, the walk-in is between Gaia Sophia, so she's the female, right? And we talk about the Maha Tantra between Mother Earth and Father Sun, or the Great Central Sun. So that galactic Christos is the Great Central Sun. The Great Central Sun is coming down and making love to the body of Mother Earth, and they are the direct expression of what this painting is saying, modeled for us through the image of man and woman in a way that we can relate, because we can see that embrace taking place, because that's what we relate to in our human sexuality. I'm just applying the principles of Tantra and sacred sexuality because of my walk-ins to the planet. And so I am basically a speaking tree of life for Gaia. So what I wrote here is actually Gaia's message to us. It's not mine. She, Gaia Sophia, Pachamama, and her divine planetary counterpart, referred to as the universal king of the earth, or Pachatata, down in South America, are literally scheduled to receive their joint Maha Tantra walk-in or destined interdimensional soul merge. This is how planetary bodies awaken to their own interstellar beloved throughout the entire transdimensional ecosystem. So just imagine that Gaia Sophia is the human body. And when Gaia Sophia goes through her walk-in, which is her vertical alignment, which is her multidimensional metamorphosis, she's going to have a sacred sexual reunion with her higher dimensional aspect, which is this oversoul body of the whole planet, which then fulfills the prophecy of ascension. Excuse me. However, it's not ascension, it's actually inscension. The technology of inscension is also called planetary Tantra. And so John Lamb Lash created Nemata, the School of Sophianic Arts and Sciences. This is one of my favorite quotes from him. Gaian Tantra and Shaktiism. Planetary Tantra is a path of interactive magic with Gaia Sophia, an intimate way to engage the supernatural powers of the divine feminine in every aspect of life, love, and destiny. It is the way of direct access to the spontaneous arising Dakini wisdom, as it is called in Tibetan Tantra. Planetary Tantra is rapturous immersion through desire and imagination and the dreaming power of the earth. It is the most intimate way of bonding with the planetary animal mother, Gaia. And this painting is just, for me, the exemplification of this planetary Tantra that takes place inside of this galactic geometry, this galactic science, this galactic mathematics of the original 12-sphere tree of life. So there's this romantic, mystical, poetic, right, beautiful transmission, and behind it is some of the most advanced galactic technology in the entire Milky Way galaxy and beyond. So it's a partnering of both science and the consciousness, the partnering of the masculine mechanics and the feminine mysteries. So the artwork is just exemplifying, operations. One of the other lineages, of course, is the Christ family, the Holy Grail, the Grail Kings and Queens. So this is Iona Miller, and she's one of the world's, renowned alchemists. And so this is her way of languaging this. What we're doing here is we're building a repertoire of all these different ways of describing the same thing, right? Just so that all bases can be covered and people can feel into this through these different traditions around the globe. This is called Gaia Rosa Mundi, like the Access Mundi, the central channel, the central Jed, the central Sushumna of the original Tree of Life. The great mother of us all includes the earthly goddess as Gaia, as the light of the divine womb, primal source, the mystery of divine light that informs and transforms into matter. This combined enigmatic beauty and deeper mystery of the Rosa mystics has captivated lovers, artists, poets, shamans, cultural alchemists, and philosophers for thousands of years. For example, a medieval lineage of the feminine arose within a persistent theme of gender reunion and the great rite of the ancient bloodline. That's the bloodline of the Holy Grail. Mystical eroticism, known as the Mysterium Conjunctionis, or royal marriage in the underground church of love. Carl Jung made sure when he wrote a large book and transmission within that title describing the separation and synthesis of psychic opposites in alchemy. That's when he went into the distinctions of the anima and the animus. So if you see in that image, right, inside of that lotus is both the god and the goddess. And so there's this huge galactic, right, Tantra taking place in the, higher realms, and it's destined to move like a nectar of Amrita, right, into the body of the planet and restore paradise on earth. So basically what they're describing here is that there's this galactic Tantra that's taking place between the divine mother and the divine father, which is huge archetypal spectrum. And that we as humans can also embody this when we go into the royal marriage, also known as the hieroscamos, and so can the planet. And that's what revivifies or restores life itself. And of course, even Disney captured this at the end of Fantasia, when, quote unquote, the dark side destroyed the planet and then everything was exquisitely reborn. That's Fantasia #1. Disney channeled that in for sure. So this is our freedom codes. This is the way that Sandra Walter says it. She's also another walk-in out of Sedona and also practices planetary Tantra. She had her awakenings up at Mount Shasta. She describes this in saying that sexual Shakti energy is the life force energy that I call the twin phoenix and dragon. It's the most powerful magnetic energy there is in all creation. It's what creates realities, births new energies, and gives way to manifesting all desires. Ancient wisdom referred to this womb or pelvic region as the gateway to God, Goddess, Source. This energy unveils the portal to the Christed creator and creatrix, right? Another twin flame. And it connects our root chakra and sacral chakra, like 1D and 2D, which have remained the two biggest vaults of stored and carried ancestral and all life traumas. The repression of these gateways have inhibited the collective from fully tapping into the life's master Christic crystals, right? That's just advanced technology for the infusion of spirit into matter, stagnating the ability to utilize the primordial crystalline magic of Mother, Father, Earth. Now the species is in the golden frequency of regenerative consciousness, where we are freeing the resurrection of our divine feminine and masculine archetypes as the new cosmic Christ, Christa. Now, Sandra published this around the summer solstice of 2020, and this synopsis is basically a summary of my first two near-death experience end-of-life reviews. So the reason why I know these other messengers are spot on, 100% accurate in what they're communicating to the collective is because these are the conversations that I had with, gazillion star races in those end-of-life reviews, because those star races didn't understand back in the 70s and 80s, like, what's really going on down there? Like, why is it so hard for them to choose love? Where's the breakdown? Why is there so much discrepancies, right, between their pre-birth planning and what they actually choose? Why is there so much forgetting? How come this isn't, getting easier for them? And those star nations were legitimately curious. They weren't coming in judgment, but it's like, don't they get it? And I was like, no, they don't get it because they've been through too much trauma. So this is from another walk-in lineage that was started called the Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Order. And it's working with something called source spiral technology that has as its foundation basically a 13th dimensional quantum unified field. So this is an image of a 12-sphere tree of life. And so when I had these near-death experience end-of-life reviews, and I traveled through these wormholes or portals to be able to go back up and speak with my extended galactic relations, I had to travel through the vortex of this original Christed tree of life. So if you've seen the movie Contact, when Jodie Foster had to go through 3 wormholes, and you look at this tree, when I died, I went through a minimum of 12 wormholes. And so, here's how MCEO, simplified this when they said, we may see the multidimensional reality represented in the universal time matrix and how that impacts our planet. Individual human anatomy and planetary anatomy manifest upon and within the multidimensional layers of vibrational frequency as instructed by the core manifestation body template of the 12 tree grid, or the original tree of life. These make up the Kathara blueprint of our planetary gates or stargates. This is a tri-wave. It's not a Vesica Pisces, it's a triveka, it's a tri-wave, it's a trinity, it's a triskel. The crystal Christos architecture is that which allows the synchronic phasing of inner, outer, in-between currents of energy to be inhaled and exhaled, circulating the eternal life spark of creation throughout the entire organism. So you can imagine right now, is you take that Vesica Pisces and you just add one more circle, right? 3 circles, and in the middle they overlap. That's the triveka. And so when I died and I started having this walk-in experience, I went through 12 stargates just to get back to council meeting where I could have the conversation with my team about all of the violence that was on the planet between the masculine and feminine poles that was preventing the species from being able to really fall back in love with itself. And so another way, that you can remember this kind of code or pattern, which is absolute unconditional love for all that you are. That includes unconditional self-forgiveness, and it also includes unconditional self-compassion, and that's for yourself and all of your ancestors. So as you're looking at these slides, you're the representative from your entire family system that's receiving this transmission, so you can have multi-generational family healing right now, just looking at these pictures. This is from Ayasha Aniana, and also Divine Tools that simplified her very advanced morphogenetic field physics, where she said the 36912 quantum self-regeneration is a perpetual life lotus. It's called the access point to eternal first creation. And this is based in the Christed or Christic spiral or Christ code morphogenetic unified field physics. Now look at the image, See that lotus pattern? That's the right brain description of what these words are meaning. The crystal spiral and the mathematical sequence from which it emerges comes directly from the 0 point. Okay, that's prime source energy, or center point of all union. That's the void. And the crystal spiral perpetually retains a living, breathing, connecting, infinite source energy flow through the preservation of what came before. And that's what we mean by going back into, dark matter, going back into 0 point, going back into the void in every emanation. And it expands through multiplication. The Christ code is the perpetual motion and precise mathematical, geometrical instructions for the creation program for the Mother, Father, God source. The Kathara fractals form the structured framework of the Kathara grids and exist in precise angular and proportional relationship to each other according to the ratios of the energy balances set up by the source spiral Christ code. Now that's a mouthful. Basically, just look at the image and just trust that your multidimensional holographic intelligence understands what all those words means, even if your brain is unfamiliar with that jargon. And feel that nectar point in the middle, with all of those lattices of that 12-sphere tree. And now relate to my story where I told you that the only way that I could get back to those council meetings where I could have this authentic discussion, about weighing in on how to remedy the challenges that were plaguing the entire human race, is through this template of reaccessing through the void all of those quantum portals, all of those quantum wormholes that will take you and bop you into a 1313 Stargate. So it's like 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D, 8D, 9D, 10D, 11D, 12D. They go sync. And when you reach the 1313 Stargate, then you're actually vibrating an authentic and genuine quantum unified field. So you can see here, there's 12 spirals. So this picture is like, that's how I got from my dead body back to Galactic High Grand Council, so that I could receive the help and the assistance from my star grandmothers and my star grandfathers that said, my child, what you experienced is just an indication of the breakdown of these original fundamental principles of life. And it's nobody's fault, right? It's an ancient trauma pattern. And we're just going to start to remedy this mess, right, through direct divine intervention. So another way of languaging this is that I traveled through a starburst of consciousness into primal particle. It's also known as a lotus rose stargate, right? So you can see the lotus, of course, is the Eastern mystery schools. The rose is the Western mystery schools. And so the original eternal nature of God source itself, and thus that of all creation, remains always perpetual and constant due to the mechanics of self-healing through starburst that God source intended, imbued and sets in motion as the foundation for the ongoing moment of first creation. Everything, including every single particle in the universe, has an encryption, and eternal life emerges from the original encryption set into the first particle, called the eternal life Christ code, capital K. From this point, creation emerges and expands, and it does so. The encryption expands infinitely and becomes more complex, and it's still based on the Christ code of the base 12 Stargate encryption. What that basically means is that we have a cosmic insurance policy. So even in that state of death where I lost everything, right? Because my human body, right, is the home for my soul. So when my body ceased to breathe, right, and I lost my human home, I traveled through this starburst of this Christ spiral Stargate. And this was my dispensation of grace to ensure that I would survive that rite of passage and prove that eternal first creation is our ace card up our sleeve and can ensure the continuity of life, even in the face of, a significant breakdown of, naughty ET interference. And this is a gorgeous painting that another one of my star sisters channeled in from like the holy grail of the planet. So this is the way that she related to the Sangreal of Gaia Sophia. And I know people are familiar with the Arthurian legends, however, they never like applied it to planetary science. So what you're seeing in this presentation is like the partnering of all these different mystery schools so that we can get a deeper insight into the mechanics of large-scale planetary resurrection, because it takes all of the different mystery schools bringing all of their pieces of the puzzle together to actually hit what you would call that access code, or that chain reaction within chain reaction within chain reaction that actually makes it possible. So the 12D name for Gaia is Automatena, and the structure of the Holy Grail is also known as her heart womb. And so this painting is the Holy Grail of the planet, which is also known as the twin flame heart womb of, like I said, Gaia Sophia and the Galactic Christos. Now they have different names. If you're over in India, that's just Shiva and Shakti. If you're over in the Himalayas, it's Tara and Babaji. If you're in some of the Asian cultures, right, it's Avalokiteshvara. So, it's a million different names, but it's the same thing. These 12 Stargate nodal apertures have been fiercely protected by many guardians. Of course, these are the star guardians, so that they would only be laced or sequenced together once our ancient future Hieros Gamos sacred marriage templates had been successfully uploaded and dialed into the frequency coordinate oscillations from direct origins. Her avatar matrix is our future Earth blueprint that activates via all the womb chakra chalice wormholes placed all throughout our entire planet's internal net of Indra. I know that's a mouthful. Don't need your brain to understand what I just read to you. Just trust, again, that every word that I'm using has a specific holographic instruction. I'm using language that's from our future. Basically, all of my walk-ins allowed me to travel to my future self and walk that future self into my human body. So this terminology that I just read is common everyday language in about 100 years. We're in 2022, right? Okay, there's my signal. So basically, we're going to go on a journey to apply a direct experience of what I'm describing for ourselves. Take it from theory into application. And these are two pictures, right, of Starship Bethlehem. And for those of you that are familiar with Rudolf Steiner, he referred to the potential destiny of the entire human race as anthropos, or the birthing of the human divine. And basically, a lot of the board meetings that I had during all of my near-death experiences and walk-ins was I would go back to Starship Bethlehem as my headquarters. And that's where we have all of these archives, right, for the master plan of how we've been designing this basically for millions and millions of years. So the gifts that have happened on the planet since winter solstice, right, the victories of transitioning that old archonic energy, you know, out of this earthly plane, that's been in the works for millions and millions of years. We're neutralizing, right, the time wars and coming into this field that is the manifestation of the law of grace. And now we have this conference, right, over these huge global victories that just transpired literally within the last 30 days. And now it's safe for me to give a presentation, because heretofore, you know, you had to have a pretty high security access code to get access to this information, because it wouldn't make sense to a normal, you know, rational, logical human brain. And, you know, it's okay that this may not actually land. You can listen to the replay for, you know, 60 days or 3 years. It's okay, it's encoded. It'll unpack itself inside of your psyche when you have these synchronistic moments that will kind of like verify what I'm saying here in a way that your direct experience can normalize it. So with that, we're going to transition into a different kind of Q&A. Because pretty much the one question that everybody asks me is like, so how does this work? So rather than taking, right, external questions, right now let's just go into an opportunity to experience this as a cooperative. So I call it the immersion and invocation. And technically this is in the lineage of the neo-shamanic activations. The painting that you can like imprint with is the royal wedding. Her bride is Gaia Sophia on the right, and the bridegroom, right, is the green man, or the Osiris, or the king of the earth on the left. And if you look at a wedding party from the perspective of the Intergalactic Confederation, got it? Thank you. Or the Galactic Federation of Worlds, Gaia Sophia and her bridegroom, the king of the earth, are galactic citizens. And so imagine now, and I'm not exaggerating, there are millions of ships now positioned all around the planet to have this quote unquote experience with us, because they know that they're assisting with this wedding party that's destined to take place in that hand fasting Stargate, which is the image in the middle. And as galactic, Gaia Sophia is married with the galactic green man, then these two royal king and queen aspects of Mother, Father, Earth receive their wedding present from all of the federations of light. And that's what is the trigger point for the ascension, inscension, first contact, awakening within the body of the biosphere. So now let's just close our eyes. Forget everything I said. Don't even try to figure it out. And just breathe down into your first and your second chakra. Your womb chakra or your hara chakra that's in this power chamber of your dantian is not your traditional chakric anatomy. It's even deeper in between the first and second chakra, underneath the base of that sacrum and tailbone. It's called the Holy of the Holies, and it's this inner sanctum where a primordial Stargate has been gifted to you when you arrived and took on this human robe. And as I mentioned in some of the previous communications, there are womb chakras or holy grail portals positioned all throughout the body of the planet, placed here millions and millions of years ago. And feel into where you are on the planet, and feel into where all of these chambers reside within all of these inner sanctums. A lot of them are actually on the base of the ocean because the planet is predominantly water. So you can relate to those star bases that are at the bottom of the ocean that we saw in James Cameron's Abyss. Now feel that the Stargate in your womb chakra, Holy of the Holies of your dantian, is connected to the same inner chambers that our star family inserted into the tantric body of Mother, Father, Earth millions of years ago, before any of the galactic wars ever started. And feel the truth that your soul already knows everything I've had in this presentation. The Gnostics call it Gnosis. Let yourself reconnect and remember Gnosis. You don't require me or this presentation to help you remember. Got the files, import, reactivate, reattune. And bring that erotic, divine Kundalini energy down through your legs, down into the body of the planet. Basically announce with your own Shakti, with your own life force, I'm here and I'm showing up for this divine appointment that we said we would caress or arouse together. Take all of this ardent desire and passion, translate it into your love and respect for this miracle known as the royal wedding. We're all star seeds here. Pour that down into your admiration for this brilliant divine blueprint that resides underneath us. All these ships that are positioned on the 1D, 2D, the crystalline grid, crystalline circuits, crystalline infrastructure, crystalline meridians, crystalline nadis. This is the root system, that original 12-spirit tree of life that's underneath us. And each and every one of us on this call or the replay carries an encodement, that encryption, that partikai. Now combine them, weave them all together. We are one body of consciousness co-participating in a massive meditative planetary tantric reattunement. And through that chamber, feel the quickening as if a lover was engaging your body in foreplay. It's not anybody outside of you that's creating that arousal response. It's your infinite multidimensional soul. I can turn myself on. I can arouse. My spirit within my body. For me, right? This is my multidimensional twin flame that physically resurrected my dead body and brought me back to life through medical miracles. Now you may feel that mythology in the cellular intelligence of your body. This is a universal promise. Connect with whatever legend you've come across that said the same thing. And feel that divine father and that divine mother principle inside of your own body, the alpha, the omega, the aleph, the tau, the anima, the animus, the Abba, the Ema, the Shekinah, the Metatron, the Valai, and on and on and on and on. They have a million names. They live inside of you. They live inside of the planet. We are one unified field. So now receive from the intelligence of the planet this twin flame divine blueprint that you are from source origins. And allow this conversation to matriculate through your system for the next 28 to 40 days, where we as a body of peeps are co-participating this romancing of the beloved within us, romancing of the divine within the planet, romancing the divine within the celestial, excuse my French, badass guardianship alliance. That's partnering and working with us, with the planet, and with our own interstellar tissues in the biosphere, our own bodies, and the planetary body, experiencing this as a cooperative. The whole point of all of us traveling to this planet was to get us to collaborate and co-create at this depth. So that we could self-actualize ourselves with Mother, Father, Earth, and with Mother, Father, Galactic Source Creation. It's a trinity. Your body, the planet's body, Source Origin's body, all syncopated as that tri-wave. Also known as the threefold flame. One pink, one blue, one gold. Feel that through your body, the planet, source origins, trifold flame. This is the holy fire. It's white fire, gold, plasma, iridescent, pearlescent. Feel consumed in the light of the Spiritus Sanctus, Ruach HaKodesh, galactic Holy Spirit. Oh yeah, it's real. And even though this is a conference today called January 9th, what do we have next month? 2/2/2/2/2, February 22nd, 2022. This activation today will sequence through all of our bodies to Stargate, star date 2/2/2/2, February 22nd, January 9th, so all the way to February 22nd. It's going to cascade, crescendo. This is what it means to participate in a sacred marriage ceremony with yourself and the planet upon which we reside. Now feel the codes already, right, gifted to us even before we were born. I call it import, right, from the swing between worlds. All your pre-birth planning councils. We already said yes to this. This is a total like, oh, right, I remember. I already know this. So all that's required moving forward here is I already know that I know. I have the gnosis of my pre-birth planning councils, right? Which is that Akashic reference file. Now gifted to you as a treasure from the planet itself. Reboot your divine recall. And conferences like this bring us together to flip the power switch. So feel me bowing in reverence to the sovereign magnificence inside of each and every one of you. I can't do this by myself. It's only available through us, through the power of we. This is why the Wish Alliance exists. We must continue to remember the power of we. This particular emanation, the Wish Alliance, we are honoring our divine contract with the planet today through this quote unquote presentation. Each and every one of you here said you would be at this exact precise moment. So it's not my gifts, it's our gifts that's making this possible. I'm only a conductor of the symphony. So feel every instrument that we are. Now we're a grand symphony. As Neil talks about sound alchemy, right? Sound current. Now become the sonorous song line together. Initiating it today and continuing to create this masterpiece of a symphonic, right? Alchemical metamorphosis for ourselves and the whole planet as a result of being willing to play with each other today. So now I'm going to shift to another image that will help us come back. So open your eyes, wiggle your hands and your feet, and see that this is, right, confirmation of this space arc starship that's in the caves, right, down in the body, deep in the inner earth infrastructure. And we just spoke to all of these starships together, embedded in the body of the whole planet, star arcs. And so these are the star nations, arcs of grace. They're positioned as a lattice or an infrastructure of light intelligence. We just, right, signaled to them collectively that we're ready for them to release their gifts and their technologies worldwide. And this is the signal, this is the master signal for embodied first contact. So that we just sent out our full yes for first contact through the embodiment of this Tantra inside of ourselves in partnership with the sentient soul of the entire organizing intelligence that brought us all here into manifest physical form. So thank you for allowing me, right, to be a midwife, shamanic midwife, for this kind of embodied first contact. Another way of just looking at what we just did, right, is this couple, the male, female inside of each and every one of us, inside of this embodied original tree of life, and that the twin flame totems is the phoenix and the dragon. Of course, those energies live inside of each and every one of us. And so a lot of people, right, may continue to see phoenix and dragons swimming through the planet, right, and assisting with first contact, because it's the partnership of the magical and the galactic and the human, right, is the love sandwich in the middle. Ta-da! So we will post this PowerPoint on the Wish Facebook page. You know, you guys can reaccess it anytime you'd like, review. And now I'm going to turn it back over to our presenters. How do I do that?
Just stop sharing. Yes, you can stop. Yeah, there you go. Well, thank you. That was quite an overview and journey through the galaxy of creation and back into form, from the formless into the form, to the union, to the birthing of a new universe, really. So I'm looking forward to seeing where your work is going from here, because that was so all encompassing. You know, that was just, did someone write in here the Holy of Holies? Yes, the Holy of Holies. That's kind of nice. Yes. And amazing. I mean, yeah, this is all good. Yes, I mean, great comments. Golden arc, the covenant of love, heart, soul, the divine creator, creatrix, source, being. Anyway, thank you, Devi. You'll be here joining us on the panel, right?
Yes. So, you know, if people have questions, feel free to use the chat box during the panel tonight to basically, you know, reposition Q&A when we bring it to, you know, the cooperative later on today. Now we have Jason here. So,
Jason, do you know Jason's work, Devi? Do you know Jason?
Not personally. I'm just trusting, right, that we're being positioned back to back by Sheila's brilliance. Okay. And I know that you're going to continue to develop this further for our audience.
Great. Thank you. See you later, Devi.